We have so much to talk. So, welcome to Blunt Conversations.
Hello. This is Twylisha.
Rosemary. So, before we get into our episode, because we were finishing our snacks, but because we have these new fancy mics and stuff.
I know.
Shout out to Ali. But I didn't want to eat my butter pretzels because I knew I'd be crunching in the mic. But the only reason I have butter pretzels is because her mom. Story, and
let me start at the beginning. So I was like, yeah, my mom told me that she has high blood pressure and she had to be on medicine. So that was making me a little worried. Like, I think I might have mentioned in previous episodes, my family is being rather unreal about their physical health. So, that's just a stressor. But then I was like, but yeah, she was eating these butter puffs, and Rose is like, excuse me? What? I was like, I know. And I was like, it's like these popcorn puff flavored, like butter popcorn. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they were yummy, but she was eating like a bag a day.
But it just doesn't even sound healthy. Like, no part of that sounds like a natural, like, I have high blood pressure, I should be eating butter straight in puff form. Like, that is
butter puffs.
So because she said that while we were in the grocery store, I was like, I saw butter pretzels and I was already looking for something, and I was like, so if I have hypertension in the next episode, know why.
Again, please insert Cash App because Rose and I are falling apart.
Oh my gosh. So even though we both look younger than we are, we preserve pretty well because of melanin, thank you.
A literal child tried to holler at me at Walmart yesterday.
And she rejected it as
I should have, because I'm a grown woman.
So we talked a little bit in our first episode about another episode that we lost, and it doesn't exist anymore. And if you find it, maybe you'll win a prize. I don't know. But the episode was about, ironically, it was about R. Kelly and pedophilia and how our culture is, so naturally, really attacking young people sexually at such young ages.
And in our culture, there's a lot of like gaslighting that occurs with young people. With girls, it's made to seem like it's something you did. You were being fast. You were enticing a man. And with boys, there's almost no space to even allow for that they get molested by these older women. The only time I think they care about boys getting molested is if it's a man molesting them, and that has a lot more to do with homophobia than it does to do with keeping young boys safe from predatory adults.
And a lot of time those boys can't come forward because of what that would negatively impact their view on themselves, the view on people will see of them, and then impacting them, their sexuality. But there's all this, especially in media and industry, I don't think people talk about how much they normalize it. And I kind of find it funny, like, Twy and I have talked about this before, with the R. Kelly thing, and a lot of this cancel culture. I'm such a pure realist in that, like, a lot of these people made it to the top by being grimy, and if you cancel everybody, like, you'd have to stop listening to all your music if you wanted to know what these producers are doing behind closed doors, because 9 times out of 10, the music you're listening to, even if it's not that artist, that producer, that director is molesting a kid. So I think before, like, I know that there's a lot of this right now. So when we had recorded this episode, R. Kelly was just, living his best pedophilia life. And I had said that as a victim of child molestation, like, I listen to his, I don't actively listen to, I'm not out there searching for him. I'm not buying a concert ticket. But, like, if, Stepping in Love, in Name of Love comes on, I might, it's a bop. So,
and that's the thing that I recall vaguely from the lost episode that I was talking about and touching on, was like, a lot of times I might be halfway through an R. Kelly song before like the fuzz of like my childhood nostalgia starts to lift, and I'm like, God damn it, this is a song about him having sex with children. And like that part of it, it makes it so skeevy to me, especially his more sexually charged songs, that it makes me just change the song, because I'm like I said, I think in that episode, it would be one thing, like, people still listen to Chris Brown, and I always be kind of looking like, he's a ridiculous coke addict or whatever. Crack, coke, they both ruin your life. Don't do hard drugs. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm like, but also it's not like Chris Brown is making songs about beating bitches' asses. So I think that's where I can come from. I can like more disconnected, because like literally I'll be listening to certain songs and I'll be like, this nigga ain't never had sex with an adult person. Like, he's always having sex with children, and all these sexy songs is like.
But I just feel like
Ew.
he's so like there's so many things that he's ingrained in, and like he's a songwriter, so he's written for other people. Like, I just feel like when you go down this rabbit hole of saying, like, I understand it's like, okay, because his songs are sexually charged, and you know he's singing to children, clearly. I get that, but like then like I just can't. I don't have the time to go through his catalog and just like to see what I'm gonna cancel, like, and then I gotta go think about all those other people who I know are out there fucking kids, and I'm like, well, but this is a bop. So I just feel like
he
personally
was a talented ass monster. Like,
they're always talented. Like, they're always.
He has plenty bops. Like, it's a thing, but. As Pete Davidson mentioned in that clip that I hope makes it into this episode, because I'm going to reference it now. As Pete Davidson mentioned, like, if you're going to engage with this content, you need to be able to be like, yeah, this person's a monster. But it's the remix to Ignition, it's still a bop. Like, you have to be able to at least talk about the fact that this is crazy, and it's not like he's an anomaly. That's the rule. Like, the anomalies are people who aren't molesting people in the music and Hollywood industries.
And in our own communities, because that's the thing, like, it's happening wildly in our community, where we know the last stat I read up on was 1 in 4 girls are victims of child molestation and rape.
And that's a disgusting amount of.
And that's the ones we know about. That's not the ones that get reported. That's not the ones we don't know about. That's not about the incest cases that you don't hear about a lot of the time. And you almost never hear about the boys. The boys
right.
are, and the boys.
Their stories are so suppressed and so silenced. Like, I think I was talking to Rose maybe a week or two ago, and I was like, can you imagine, like, telling somebody that like some grown man had sex with you and them responding like, yeah. But that's how they respond. Like, whenever there's a story, like when Mary Kay Letourneau came up, it was like a big joke. It was like, I wish the sexy teacher would have had sex with me. But he was literally like 12, I think. 12 or 13. And I'm like, if that was a gender switch,
under the jail, they would have had him strung up.
They wouldn't have it, and I think it's really disgusting that our young boys are just thrown to the wolves like that, because society is so weirdly like trying to imbue men with this like ravenous sexual appetite, and they're supposed to conquer as many people as they can with their penis, and like it's from little. Like, you don't even get to develop a healthy sexual identity as a boy in this society, because literally someone can molest you and people will be like, you the man. Like, imagine that.
I mean, how many men her and I both have talked to men who have been like, I lost my virginity, and this is how they say
That's
it.
how it's always
I
framed.
lost my virginity at 12.
Because,
excuse me, little boy?
Because if they was to tell somebody that a lot of these people have people around them that would give them that and it's like Rose and I always say, like, well, Rose always says it because I'm always trying to tell somebody they're sucking dick, and she's always like, you can't just tell somebody that they're sucking dick, and I'm like, but they are though. And it's like, you can't just tell these men, these grown men, that they were molested, but they were. Because whenever you dig a little deeper into that story, because anecdotally speaking, I know, again, when I was naming the daddy list children that I know, I could run down a list of men and boys that I've spoken to that had that weird ass. I was like, what is this, like a script that niggas are following? Because I found it to be so bizarre, because I was like, if a babysitter had sex with me, that would be a problem. But you're telling me your babysitter or your mom's friend or your older sisters, whoever, had touched your penis or had sex with you when you were 11, and everybody was like, yeah, that's cool. And I never get it. And so I always would be like, I would always ask when somebody tells me that they were like losing their virginity at an age that's very considered sexually precocious, I'm always like, oh, so, how that, with who? Like, who is having, because like in my mind, I'm like, it's probably not another 12-year-old.
It's usually not. It's usually not another kid. That's the thing.
And that's the problem.
And especially like, we were talking because there's a lot of people who want to put their kids in the industry, and
it's such a dangerous place for a person to be.
I really kind of almost, it's crazy to me because the same way that they weren't like bugging over the Letourneau case, and I felt that way when I remember when R. Kelly married Aaliyah. We would have been about this. We would have been the same age. We would both would turn 40 this year.
I was like, I was like 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm. And I was
so you were like
15, 16.
Yeah, and
she was 4. Yeah,
I was younger, but I was saying that because I was younger, when you're young and when you're little, everybody who's taller than you seems just an adult. Like, it's like there's me being a child and then adults. And so in my mind, when people are all done up, like Aaliyah came out when she was like 15 or 16, but she looked very adult to me because of the way she was packaged and presented. And I thought that she was young, but when I discovered that R. Kelly had married her and nobody was upset about it, it made me question myself. Like, I felt like everybody around me was gaslighting me because I was like, wait, isn't it not okay? And I was like, wait, is he an adult? Or is she an adult? I thought she was a teenager. And I had a lot of questions because I was 12. But I didn't have nobody to ask because everybody was acting like, yeah, R. Kelly and Aaliyah got married.
And me as a 15-year-old, and this is what I was thinking, because here's the thing. I was pregnant by 16. So I'm like, nobody said shit about this grown man marrying this child, but people were giving me a side eye about being a teen mom, and I was like, wait a minute. How is this thing okay?
They didn't bat an eye. Like, and that was the thing that always, so then later on in life, when it came to like the videotape, the infamous videotape, I just remember being like, that tracks. Because remember, he married a teenager. And because once I was older and I was like, no, I knew I was right. She was a child and he was a grown ass man. And y'all did not react appropriately.
It was on E.T. I just remember because I didn't get a lot of channels. And also, the fact that this was just news, like R&B star marries up and coming, not grown ass man marries a fucking kid.
It takes a child bride. Like, it was craziness. So I'm like, no, I was right. That was weird. Nobody reacted appropriately. And now he has urinated on another child and recorded it. And everybody's looking all like, oh my God. No, not oh my God. He's a pedophile. And you knew that. And you didn't care.
And I think that's my problem too. I know that this culture really doesn't care about kids just by how it neglects them often and puts them in these precarious situations.
First of all, to the people who are like trying to facilitate a child star career in their child, what is the motivation behind that? Like, I remember being a child, like a preteen into my early teen years, and they would start to talk about the child stars of yesteryear, like so in the 90s, they was talking about these child stars from the 70s and how horrible their lives were. And I, at a young age, I clocked the pattern. I was like, well, it seems like this doesn't really work out. It's the same thing I said when I would be like looking at people having babies over and over, and I'd be like, this is not working for anyone. Why do y'all keep doing it? And that's the same way I feel about child stars. I'm like, the likelihood that you as a child star will gracefully and successfully navigate a career up into adulthood without being pigeonholed, typecasted, molested, put through the ringer, and
financially
going crazy
dependent on by your family.
Yes, the likelihood that that's not going to happen to you seems low. It seems like they have a low success rate.
And that's the successful ones. That's the ones that make it in the industry. That's the end game. That's where you wind up. So I just feel like I'm always gonna be like, there's too much of it, because I'm like, when you look behind the curtain in any place, it's usually a bunch of evil pedophiles. Like the church, the government. Every time you pull back the curtain, somebody's fucking a kid, and
it's terrible. But also, we have to admit, collectively as a society, that we also don't care, because everyone's always horrified when a story comes to light in which somebody was being molested, incest, whatever. But at the same time, these people don't never be in trouble. Mm-mm. They don't never see they get like the way that R. Kelly was able to have a whole like harem of sex trafficked black girls at his disposal, and he also can't read. That just tells me that he had a lot of assistance in getting that all together. And I'm looking at his assisters like, okay, but you sat here and collected young women for him. So you can't be on the surviving R. Kelly trying to be all righteous now.
And here's my thing, like, you talked about your friend Gretchen before, like, R. Kelly couldn't have trafficked her.
Absolutely not.
But here's my thing, and this is why we say it's not just the media industry, it's the whole system. It's you already know they know who to target, and if you're targeting black women, no one's really caring. Now, I had said before about being molested as a child, and I had spoke up and said I told adults like I was supposed to, and it wasn't dealt with. And it wasn't dealt with on the level of, they said, oh, we could bring this to the police, but then you're going to have to, it would be a trial, and so he said, it could be traumatic. And they basically put it on me and were like, do you want to do this? I was 10.
And I
had no idea.
It sounds awful as an adult. Can you imagine being 10 to make a decision like that?
And then explain to me, like, I'm a whole ass adult and I don't know what's happening. I just know something's wrong. And now it seems like I'm going to have to go through some more shit that I ain't want to go through. And so there were no repercussions. This person didn't get punished, and they went back out in the streets, and I'm sure they probably did it to somebody else.
And that's the sad part, is that I feel like children's voices are not well respected in the justice system and in the court system. Family court and all of that, like, they are completely dismissive of children and their needs and what is actually in their best interests, in favor of letting a mother keep her kids in most cases. Like, you really gotta be some downtrodden, down bad, low down dirty woman for them to take your children away. And you have to be like the dregs.
And also, please see our previous episode where we're talking about reasons not to have kids, because there are a lot of people, and this is, in the dating episode, I mentioned that I always kind of knew that I was going to not date until my kids were older. This is not just because I didn't have time for it, I had fucking kids, but also because I knew how predatory the kind of man who dates a woman with 3 kids is. And you can at me all fucking day, But I guarantee you, you look at a lot of these dudes who are out here checking for a bitch with 6 and 7 kids. They're not the best kind of nigga. And whatever, like, fight me. I don't give a like. I don't care about this. This is one thing you're not. I will not fucking budge, and you can cancel me too, nigga. I don't care.
That is something that I clocked from a long time ago. I'm good with that, because I knew so many young mothers and single mothers just in my sphere, and I saw the type of men that would come around and that they would accept in their world. And I'm like, this ain't the one. But you're going to be with him because he's here. And you're in a pinch because you already got some trifling niggas' kids. So what you going to do? Keep turning niggas down for the rest of your life? And they know that that's where you're at in a lot of cases. And they take advantage. Like, for some reason, these niggas always can move in. Why is he homeless? Why don't you have questions about this? Why is he so pressed to be a stepdad? I think that's a weird energy. I think that's a real weird energy. And I think it's a weird energy that y'all are out there looking for stepdads for your kids, because these niggas be touching the babies.
And I'm sure that someone's going to put some fucking rare ass exceptional fucking story in the comments if anyone ever really starts watching more than our 24 loyal flowers. We love you.
We do. Day one.
Yeah, like, I'm sure there's gonna put someone who put the story of the hoe who turned into a lawyer, who had her 7 kids, who met her Prince Charming. Like, we love you for it. Like, congrats.
Yes,
but
we love to see it.
Are not the norm. The norm is there's predators out there, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to, come at the people. We're trying to let people know that, like, maybe if you're a parent, like, this is something that you should be thinking about, because it is a weird energy for if you have 6, 5, 4, 3 kids and a dude just is thirsting to be a stepdad. Like, you really need to,
because nobody likes your kids.
And I know you're lonely, because I've been, like I said, I've been a single parent. It's a hard life. Like, you don't have a lot of time. Like, I get it. But you gotta know your worth. And again, see previous episodes.
And you have to be selfless. As a parent, you have to be selfless. You need to be vetting people better. That's just, I think, period, in the sentence.
Yeah. No. So it's hard, and I get it. But I just feel like...
And that must go for friends, too, because the amount of young boys that I have heard, or men that I heard, that somebody, mom, a friend, fucked them when they was 14 or some foolishment like this. And I'm like, that's inappropriate.
Like,
it's not okay for your friends to have sex with your children. Like, it's outrageous.
And it's one thing for, like, little kids, touch little, like, they're for them, like, for kids to be innocent. But, like, y'all know the difference of...
I think in that episode we mentioned, because, like, when we moved, Rose's children were here with us. And, like, it was 2 young boys. One of them, he was legal. We'll say that.
He's so bad.
But I was like, sometimes he would just come up the stairs and I would be like, yeah, there's a child in the house. Like, I don't understand these people who are in their even not even late, in your 20s. Like, when I was 18, I thought I was like, it's inappropriate for me to date a 16-year-old, because I'm like,
they're so mentally in another place and, like, haven't had enough life experience to, like, know who they are as a person and, like, have true deep interests. And, like,
when people are young, so much happens in the first, like, 25 years of your life. So much growth happens that I think that when you're in that bracket, you can't really stray more than a year down or up away from what age you're at, because honestly, like, when I was 20, I'm like, I'm gonna be with an 18 because I'm in college. I'm gonna be with a high schooler. Like,
our lives are in two totally different places. They're going like,
and it's so broad in those, like, you're racing through experiences when you're in that age bracket, and like,
and it's
for somebody to be 30 dating an 18-year-old, that's gross.
And like I said, they're not getting to the Gretchens. They don't have anybody in their life that's looking out for them, because if they
that's gonna keep them safe,
they would definitely be like, yo, that's a grown-ass man or that's a grown-ass woman. How is every person in their life doing what everybody did when R. Kelly married Aaliyah, and they're just letting it fucking float? Because
people were just giving their daughters to R. Kelly.
And it happens every day.
Those parents that were on that fucking documentary, I'm like, you should be shamed. You should be shamed. After, what, 1996? I don't think that you should be bringing your children around R. Kelly.
And you know what?
Because you gotta know he's a pedophile. If he married this 15-year-old girl and he was 27... did he not fuck her? Like,
and this is not, like, this is the norm in the industry. And I had my phone's charging, but I had all these couples pulled up since like 1919 that goes back to how long y'all been ignoring grown men fucking little girls in your face, marrying them and everything. 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds.
And he be 40.
And it gets by, and it's in the newspaper, because you can Google the shit. Like, it's not like we didn't know.
These things be public record. Like, certain things that you do is just public record. Everybody needs to be able to know that. And getting married is one of those things.
And nobody was getting in trouble. There was one dude who got custody of the chick so he could take her across state lines. And it was legal. It was legal. Like, and
because when you're a child, I think even to this day, you don't really have any rights in the justice system. So basically what would happen is parents would be giving their children away. That's what's happening. Because you would need to organize it with the parent. Like, if you wanted to get custody, or if you wanted to marry someone who's underage, it would be like they have to get permission from their parent. But it's not that way. They don't even have to be a part of the transaction. If the parent says you're gonna marry him, the child has no legal recourse to say no. In a lot of states, I think that was something I saw on that Hulu or whatever I was watching. They was talking about child brides, and the women were talking about how basically their parents just sign them away to these men. And she was like, if somebody does that when you're 15, she's like, you can't even get a divorce until you're 18. And by this point, you've been molested and fucked up by this weird predicament that your parents have allowed you to be in.
Like what's come out about this man? Like, I think we both have talked about, not in the show, but about like Dame Dash's interview talking about Aaliyah and how she couldn't even talk about her years with R. Kelly. Like, there's a certain kind of like pain and things, like when we watched the Tina Turner episode, like there's these women, like it affects them into their adulthood
for the rest of their life. Like, people are able to, I guess, as you say, heal from trauma or whatever, but it's not something it's something you can't forget, and it's something. Healing, in my opinion, is like learning to live with the life that you have and to no longer emotionally invest in the painfulness of it, which is easier said than done because these things are painful.
It's the same way.
And they just are.
Like, the same way I was talking about, I had to make peace with my dad because he's dead. And if I was just out walking around here angry, who I'm angry at? The nigga's dead. Like, it's the same thing with that. Like, I had to come to that same place on my molestation and like things that I felt about myself, because it was like, I mean, how long be mad at my pretend 10-year-old self? Like, that's silly. Like, you know, it's valid and, you know, it's a thing, but it's also something that I can't ruminate in. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people, and I did all, you know, I had a journey. But, you know, do drugs or alcohol or food or whatever, you know, the thing, or sometimes it's dusty niggas. Like sometimes
it's just, you just gotta have some nigga around, and it doesn't matter how trifling he is, he just gotta be there. And super trifling niggas look for people who are at that zone in their life where they just want somebody to be around. And they tend to be vampires of sorts, energy suckers, money suckers. They, you know, they'll sponge off of you. And
a couple of you community head ass niggas, because I've definitely been in situations with some of them niggas that I didn't expect to be in because of who they presented themselves to be.
A lot of the community head ass niggas is predatory. Like, they just... Because is it not abnormal to be that? I don't know. I just feel like anybody who's being extreme is probably extreme. Like,
and that's the life you're inserting yourself in. And when you put your kids in this life, that's what you're inserting them into. When you have kids and you put them in precarious situations, this is what you're inserting them to. You're inserting them to dangerous, dysfunctional, well-documented situations of abuse, rape, molestation, over and over again. And so, yeah.
And it's like, people shouldn't have to be 35 before they start to think about feeling better about themselves because of all the fucked up savagery they had to get through when they were a child to make it to adult. Like, it's crazy how many of our adults are wild, dysfunctional, emotionally and intellectually very immature. And a lot of that, in my opinion, stems from people parenting like these people who don't pay their kids no attention. They don't try to do anything to enrich their children's life. They so wrapped up in what they're doing and their own problems and their own wants and needs and desires that they're not really putting their children first as they should. And you're putting your children in these bad positions. And you can't tell me you're not when everybody knows somebody that's been raped or molested.
And here's another thing. Like, we've talked about this too. How many young girls we lose who are maybe 18, 19 and have already had 4 kids before they can come into... Some of them have been married off. You're married, you have 4 kids, and you're 19, 20 years old. Like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry that everyone let this happen. Like, that's the thing. And it's a normal story.
Imagine, like,
and they talk about the woman like she's a hoe.
Like, she's the problem. But probably for most of the time, like, anybody who was a teen mom, somebody was in their life failing them because, like...
Someone should be checking.
I just feel like if you have too much free time on your hands as a teenager and nobody's really investing in you and paying attention to what you're doing and who you're doing it with and why you know, if you start acting out and nobody's investigating why. I feel like these are the types of children like who fall through the cracks and the types of young girls who end up, you know, getting pregnant. A lot of times not by an age-appropriate other person. Like, it's weird how being a teen mom is an epidemic, but being a teen father oddly isn't.
It's not
That's
a
weird.
thing. Well, because a lot of
it's a thing, but it's not. We don't talk about being a teen father near as much as we talk about being a teen mom.
But also, do you know why? Because there's less teen fathers. They're more grown-ass fucking men. It's grown men fucking little girls.
Fathering teenage moms' children. And that's a problem.
There's a lot of these high school, like, you know, again, the anomalies, but again, not the norm. And even those ones are...
Even growing up, like, anecdotally speaking, if I know more than one, and I do, person who was having sex at a young age with somebody who was too old for them. And when you're a teenager, you might not realize what's wrong with that until you're like 27.
But also, like, I know not having we talked about all the dudes without no dads around. Here's the thing: now that I'm older and I've got to see a couple people and meet some people who had some actual like real ass fathers in their life, like they as a man have lived through the stages of being a man and know what it's like to be hormonal and all that kind of thing. So even if you're a 16-year-old dating an 18-year-old, if they got a father around, they're looking at him like, I wish you would. Like, I wish you would. But that's not what's happening. Because how many women did we did the fucking TLC math of all the fucking fatherless women we know, just between the two of us? We did that. Same.
There's some of those people that I was like fatherless. They was boys. They were fatherless boys. So it's not just fatherless daughters. It's not just daughters with daddy issues. I got siblings. People,
she got siblings.
Yeah. Like I have two brothers, and neither one of their fathers. Like I never met my brother that passed away. I never met his father. And his father died when I was like, I don't know, I think like 15 or something. And I never laid eyes on my own brother's father. That means that man never came around our house to come visit him, to come pick him up, to come give my mother anything for help. The man was a ghost. Obviously I know Bashante has a father, but I don't know anything about this person because he was so uninvolved with his son, my brother. And I have another brother whose father, I think at this point, now that I'm grown, if I say I met him 5 times, I feel like I'm being generous with that estimate. And again, this is somebody this is my brother that I lived with every day of my childhood, and their fathers are ghosts to me. And my father is a ghost to me. That's a problem. But y'all will only focus on me to have daddy issues because I'm the girl. But my brothers obviously have daddy issues. They are very untethered. Like, and because they're men and because they're black men, don't nobody care if they sad or they got problems. They just gotta whatever. Who gives a fuck? And that's how society treats black people and black men when it comes to their emotional health. I think just now, like, my generation is starting to be like, maybe we should like check in on the mental health of the male population, because like we've been doing the female population justice for quite some time. Like, we're very encouraged to do things that humans do, like bond and have close friendships and have nurturing relationships with your children and be a good family member and be a good friend. Like, that's kinds of things that are expected of women and are encouraged of women to have deep, intimate relationships with the important people in their lives. And for men, I feel like it's more encouraged for them to be able to provide deeply for the important people in their lives. And I feel like that has been translated to like a financial obligation for men, which I'm not saying it isn't, but it's not simply a financial obligation. And to be honest, a lot of men aren't meeting even that. And they're certainly not meeting the emotional obligations to the important people in their lives. I don't think that
they can form. I don't think, because these people can't form bonds. These kids who grow up, who have their crazy mother, have been through some kind of trauma, like these, or don't know their father, and like these people all grow up, and to have the capability to try and heal. Men aren't encouraged in the same way to go to therapy. I feel like it's more open and common to, like, you know, go to therapy and talk about medication and talk about, you know, routines to like all to, you know, self oh, bless you,
excuse me,
self-care and that kind of thing is becoming more on trend with women. But with men,
I think it's just starting to become something that men are being encouraged to do. And you know how these things are, change is usually incremental. So, you know, even though I believe our generation and people coming up behind us are being more open about that, it's going to take time for that to be the accepted manner in which society operates. It's going to take a lot of time. It might take after Gen Z.
Well, here's the thing, because this is cool, because we, control this, and we put it up on YouTube and do all that stuff, so we're not owned by media. Insert cash app. You like that? So there is a trend where our generation, I am the last of the 80s, baby. I remember before the internet, niggas. I remember before the internet. So there is potential for the next generation and generation, and I'm really hoping that it's not gonna be on trend with what it's been to, which is just, to me, promoting child porn even more. I hope that it's more people.
You know what? I will say, I think that, the generations that's come after us, they're a little bit more discerning about, that type of imagery, in the media. I like to watch my YouTube commentary channels, and I've been noticing a trend of people going back and analyzing tropes in the media where people are teenagers having sex with their teachers, and how in life we say that's not appropriate. But you can name so many shows where that becomes a big storyline, it's very much portrayed. It's never portrayed this is wrong. It's usually they're sneaking around, but it's never written it's expressly wrong. So I feel there's a lot of double talk and a lot of double two-faced messages that are sent out to young people. So if you find yourself as a young person going through these situations, you might have a lot of conflicting thoughts going on in your head. And you're young, and this is a heavy situation for you to be in at such a young age. And I think what happens is when you're a teenager, you're not operating as your highest self. You're not going to be making your best choices.
I feel and I talked about this before, I have such guilt as a mom, just because looking back with retrospect, I gave my kids, a place to live and food and shelter, but what I couldn't give them was a more developed sense of life, because I didn't have it. I was a teenager who hadn't experienced a lot of things in life but negative trauma. So, I, kept the ship afloat, but also, there's a certain stability and things that I would have liked to have given them, just so that for them to have a better footing in life. They didn't get, this mom. They got different stages of this mom, but they didn't get the healthiest version. I was 400 pounds by 18. Clearly, I was going through some things. But when you're out there alone, battling it by yourself, and everyone's normalizing your trauma on a daily basis, at me again, niggas.
I think a lot of people in our community are really just doing the best they can with the shitty ass hands that have been dealt, and that this guy is really dragging it. Every time that we're going to
doesn't
record,
matter.
Somebody wants to do their lawn work and do it forever. I'm your lawn is not even that big. Nobody's lawn is that big. That shit should be done in 20 minutes tops. Anyway, but yeah, I feel so many people in our community, and this is all walks of life, because unfortunately, even the Gretchens of the world are going to have their problems and going to have their problematic family members. Because really, when you're in a black family, you're never really too many degrees of separation from an alcoholic or a crackhead or something weird like that, or somebody who's color struck. You're always going to have some toxic person that's within a fucking stone's throw of you.
Right?
And I'm sure as white people, that's a thing too. But I worry about black people because it comes from within and it comes from without for us. And I don't think that other races, the from without is as intense as it is for us. Maybe I'm biased because I'm black. Maybe I'm biased because I'm dark skinned. But I feel like there's a lot of aggression that comes my way because of the race that I am.
No, and I feel it too. Like I said, I feel like my situation, they were very dismissive because looking back at it, it was a very trashy situation. So I'm sure they were like, well, yeah, this happened. So I feel like, again, people looked at my situation and were very dismissive of the things that were happening because they were like, well, yeah, of course she's in jeopardy. I mean, what you want us to do? So, that being said, the hope is for the next generation to figure out something even cooler, better than the internet, so you don't have to mass media whore yourself and we don't have to fucking rape little kids to get ahead in life. I don't know why everyone in the industry, everyone behind closed doors is thirsty to rape little kids, and
it's a really weird energy. Like I'm telling you, I love to watch my YouTube commentary video essays because the topics that they get into, they were talking about, I just recently watched one by Yara Zad. I should link her. I'll find her information. But she was talking about how basically they just merchandise Marilyn Monroe's entire life. Like, when you're famous, you have to stop being a person in a lot of ways, which I think is very sad because when you're a celebrity, like when you're an actor or a singer, your product really is you. Like, yeah, you singing, but like it's something about you. Like, there's something about Rihanna. There's something that y'all mad thirsty for her to cut another record and she's paying you dust. She's like, I actually have moved on. But everybody still wants music from her because there's something about her that is connecting to other people on a personal level. Like, people have a lot of feelings at this person they ain't never met. You know what I mean? So when you're a celebrity, that's what happens. And they even talk about, and she even spoke about how even after she died, they still were like selling her. Like, and they talk about how when young people get involved in this industry, like, imagine being 11 and being the breadwinner of the household. And maybe you want to not do this because having a job is corny. But now you're making all this money, like, and the family is living a lifestyle, and it's because of you. And you just gonna stop? You putting your children in very bad positions. And I get that there are children that are they have that
precocious
it factor, and they have, like, they're hamming it up. And I believe that those children should be able to pursue that type of interest if that's what they want to do.
A young musician and
but you have to be careful, and you have to be present and aware that industry is disgusting. And the molestation is just, everybody knows about it, and it's just like, well, that's what you gotta do to get your check. You gotta start sucking some dick, or you're not gonna get your check.
Listen, so she be watching the YouTube channels. I like to watch my killer kids and my story, like the adult stories, and I can usually go through and like guess which one's been molested before they talk about it. But it's a whole trickle down effect. Like, y'all need to get into it. It's happening everywhere. And
I think that as long as it keeps happening, we're just going to be doomed to be in these same cycles where people, like, are having a hard time connecting with other people. They're having a hard time connecting with themselves. They're dealing with a lot of self-loathing and hatred and shame and resentments and, like, a lot of negative emotions behind this thing that happened that a lot of people aren't even there yet to understand that something wrong happened. So there's people in these negative, like, emotion spirals, and they may not have even connected the dots yet as to why they are having these feelings that they're having. And if they're a man, even if they do connect the dots, I'm sorry. I feel bad because I'm like, what do men do? I'm like, they don't encourage y'all to have the type of, like, when I say intimate friendships, like, I feel like
relationships, just any
they're like relationships. Like, I feel like Rose knows a lot about me. I feel like she's very in tune with me and where I'm at, and like, and things like that. And I feel like vice versa, like, we can usually tell. And also not just being in tune with that, but also being accommodating of it.
And I don't know that men are allowed that space, really. And I can say that, like, you know, I'm not always, I love to bash a man, but like
I was on the phone with my mom the other day, and I don't think that Rose knew I was on the phone, but I like was in my room and I just was crying and I burst into tears, and she's like, "Wait, what?" Like, I'm coming in. What's going on?
I was like,
I hear crying.
I mean, I thought, what was I gonna do? Turn up the music? Like, that's weird. That's crazy behavior. Like, I have to be like, all right, so I'm coming in. Like, I'm used to coming in when she's naked now. Like, I've gotten so much better about that. I feel like I've grown as a woman. Like,
and it's so funny because, like, I feel like every time I'm about to take a shower, Rose is like, "Hey, I want to talk," and I'm like, I mean, all right,
I just feel like I've gotten to the point where either, because especially when I was busy and working, it's like either I'm gonna see her naked or I'm not gonna see her at all. Again, not helping with the neighbors.
So, you know, it's just, and I know, like, Rose is very much like, if somebody's gonna see me naked, I need like 3 business days notice. Like, so I don't ever just like, my door is almost always open. So like, whatever. But if her door is closed, or I know, like, usually if she's taking a shower or something like that, like, I just give her a moment before if I need something, because really I'm not like naked.
And also, like, not for nothing, like, I'm still dealing with long-term effects of this, because I had just gotten, you know, because of my molestation and because of my issues, I had just gotten to a place with my body where I could, like, be naked comfortably. But that was when I was plus size. And I don't have that. So, again, a reason to be mad. Like, but, like I said, it's, what are you going to do? So, that's the thing. Like, people just need to think about the whole trickle down, like, the way that it affects people and long term, and these like, kids grow
honestly,
up.
Like, I'm gonna be 37 this year.
I'm gonna be 40.
Rose is gonna be 40. Like, we're approaching the halfway point of life in most cases. Like, between the age of 40 and 50, that's like the halfway point. Most people don't make it to 100. So
my knees are like 97, and I just need them to, like, give me 10 more good years.
I'm waiting to get I'm waiting to be like old Shirley I met in Jamaica that got her new knees after she retired. I was so jealous of her.
I legit need a whole new body insert for GoFundMe. Like, this is legit. Like, I need my skin removed. These knees are bent. Like, this is the only thing holding on. Please help me.
but like, nobody should have to live half of their life trying to dig their way out of a trauma hole.
I was just born in, like, and that's the thing too, like, not just me, there's millions of us that were just born into, by the time we were 15, the shit we done seen and been through. I couldn't tell you how many prison rooms visits I'd been on. I couldn't tell you how many welfare offices I'd been to. I can't tell you how many.
Before I graduated middle school, I had been in situations where we had to go to wash up in McDonald's bathrooms before I was able to go to school for the day, because the house was unreal. No water, can't brush your teeth, taking whole baths in public restrooms, and I'm 11. I'm 12.
Flushing toilets with buckets of water, and I'm 11, 12.
Like, you shouldn't have to do those types of things, and, like, you just get through it because you have to do it. But also, like, you just have to live with this adult who is probably dysfunctional as fuck, and you're just stuck with this person. And again, because as a child, your voice doesn't really matter unless somebody does something really egregious. You're just gonna be with this dysfunctional adult.
I think of all the episodes, like this one I'm the most passionate about. Like before I was into media and before I did anything else, like I was a preschool teacher. I worked with children for years. And I know, looking and going through my therapy, like I know it was because I was emotionally stunted and I just felt more secure around children than I did around adults. And honestly, I still same. Like, I don't trust you niggas, but like
adults are tricky.
But there's a purity with children, and I love doing it. And I was a great teacher. You can ask anybody. They love me. I was a great nanny. Like I was passionate about me because I just remember the world at that age, and I just remember how scary it was to me, and being short and not having control, and the adults in my life were just doing crazy things, and how loud noises would be scream. Like there's so many things, and I thought this is a horrible. Like as I was a child, I was like, this is not cool. Like why isn't anyone chill? And that's what made me a great teacher, because I could just approach these kids from where they were, and like the fact that there's so many people out there that are the antithesis of me and just are out there preying on these sweet natured kind things. Like I love 0 to 6 because like I say that's who you really are. Like from 0 to 6, like you'll get older, you'll learn some new tricks, you might do some freaky shit, but you basically still that 6-year-old bitch or that 6-year-old nigga. Like your personality at that age. And some of the kids who have endured trauma at 4, 5, 6, 7, like how do you develop normally into a person? How that person goes into society and they cause traumas on traumas on traumas on traumas. And that's what we want to bring attention to. So yes, R. Kelly may be on the spotlight, but all you niggas are raping. So
there's a lot of people out here, sexual predators. And that goes for girls and boys. And I'm very much an advocate for young boys to have a voice in this conversation about rape culture, because they are being completely ignored. And it's been my whole life. Like I know so many men, and it's sad. It's really sad because they don't even get to have somebody give them any empathy or love, or that wasn't your fault, or just anything for them to really grasp onto, to I think process this in some type of healthy manner. And I feel like a lot of men just, they have to go with, I liked it, it felt good, and I was into it, because the other option is
I was raped. And these things are going on both sides of the fence. So I feel like, I'm glad this moment in time they're highlighting it. And that's why for me, yeah, I'm still going to listen to Step in the Name of Love, because y'all been raping. Everyone's been raping, and I just feel like
it's so prevalent.
I'm not gonna go out here. I'm not giving him no money. Like I'm not buying and downloading his shit or nothing like that. But if it just comes on, or if Pandora is feeling froggy, like I'm not finna change it necessarily, because like again, we'd have to cancel all you niggas. I would love to be able to scroll all the niggas that like have known for raping young girls on the thing, because this, what's up, Drake? Like I just
Drake is a predator.
Like there's just so many predators out here that are just, and we know it, and it's cool, and like they may not always be with a young girl.
Money is devilish, because that was what it was. That's what tempts everybody to put their children in the hands of celebrities, because at the end of the day, like, you don't know this nigga. Like, I remember being in elementary school and finding out, like, all of Michael Jackson, all that, him touching little boys was starting to come out. And I remember being like, why are there little boys at his, like, I couldn't understand why they were there. Cause I was like, I don't feel like my mother would like send me, and my mother loved Michael Jackson. Like, she's a big fan. She's big time groupie action for MJ. Okay. But I just knew in my heart of hearts, I was like, I feel like if Michael Jackson popped up and was like, hey, Sarintha, send your daughter to the Neverland Ranch to stay with me for 3 weeks, I feel like my mom would say no because that's weird. But for whatever reason, people kept it. How many times you gotta get accused of touching a little boy before you stop sending your little boy to his house? Like, I don't understand why he always had a fresh parade of little boys.
Me as a parent, like, I'm not sending my kid to no grown person's house. Like,
for what though? Like, that's the part that I'm like, sums up with these parents, because you so thirsty for money and fame and to be proximity to a celebrity that now you're just gonna go with some suspect ass situation. Because why does this adult person need to have your child at his house overnight, no less? What? I didn't get it. Like, the stories was coming out and I was like, why has he got these little kids at his house again for
and again,
without their parents?
Hold on a second, because here's the thing. I've always been like, I'm not 100% he was actually molesting these kids. I don't know what was going on. What I do know for 100% was that he was molested. Like, Michael, like, and again, a child star. I'm saying bring it full circle, because
it's not, the math is not matching.
That is what trauma looks like with money. Like, trauma looks different, but like, you can't tell me in the 70s, a little black boy with all the drugs and craziness that was happening, and he's a star, that he wasn't. And on top of the beatings and shit.
I was just saying, if he wasn't molested, he was still abused because his father had an abusive nature, and that's what's well documented. So it's just like, how are you supposed to be a person under these conditions?
That's one of the most successful artists of all time. Okay? And I feel like all we did was reinforce that. Because they can say what we wanted, but that man made money till he died. And he went through some of the most extreme conditions. And I'm sure his
estate still makes money.
And a lot, when you get your kids into the industry, you want them to be successful, right? Do you want them to be Michael Jackson successful?
Because
it means
that's what it looks like. Look, that's what it looks like. So I just feel like fame and celebrity is, I feel like it's a losing battle, because the only thing good I think that comes out of it is the financial security of being a millionaire if you achieve that status. But then there's a lot of situations where you see people, they rise and they fall, they get all this money and then they be broke again. And so it's like, nothing is a guarantee. And if you don't have the proper people around you, you can easily fuck the money up. And also too, if you don't have the people in your corner, like they were talking about these child stars, and once you become a certain level of fame and celebrity, you a Disney Channel star, let's say, you know what I mean? Once you achieve a certain level of celebrity, you have people now that are on like your payroll. Like, their livelihood depends on a 14-year-old. And can you really count on this adult who needs you to continue working to pay their bills,
to make
always making decisions in your best interest? And I say, no, I don't trust nobody that much, because at the end of the day, because we live in the society that we live in, which is a capitalist society, money moves everything, and that's just an awareness that everybody has, that they need money. So if your job now is to be a personal assistant to Selena Gomez while she's on whatever the fuck on Disney, you need this bitch to keep being a star. Like, you can't have her being like, I don't want to do this no more, because now you got to find the next job.
And you're definitely more apt to be like, well, I'll leave her alone with this producer if it gets her the role.
And I just feel that, I don't feel like children are being thought of when everybody's trying to push them into this entertainment field when they're from so young and they're very vulnerable. And I tell Rose all the time, I was like, I only did one one film in my career so far, and I was like, and I already saw, and it was like an indie film. It was like I just already saw a lot of inappropriate behavior, and I'm just like, I don't feel like it's gonna get no better the more money you throw at the situation.
No, so, it's just a predatory ass environment, and like that's the like when you're in that and you're unprotected, as a lot of people are,
and you're young, because a lot of times it seemed like for whatever reason there's not accommodations made for a parent to accompany, and I don't understand that part. Because I'm not, what was it? I think Usher went to go live with P. Diddy when he was 15 or something like that. Don't quote me on the exact specifics of it, but I just feel like, why does your 15-year-old son need to be living with some grown man to record music? You can't record music and then go home? And why does this grown man want to now take on the responsibility of a 15-year-old person that ain't even his? It just, and nobody is ever like, that's kind of weird. Everybody's just like, yeah, that makes sense. And to me, it just never did. I was just like, I just feel like my mom would not send me to go live with anybody that, especially if she wasn't welcome. Like, what you mean? What do you mean, since Alicia, I can't come? She's a child. I have to come. Or she can't come.
Like I said, we've talked about it before, because I've always gotten a sense from Twilight, like, that she was just protected in a certain way that I did not have. Like, I remember my mom sent me from my dad, and I was like, this man's unsafe. Like, I was like, woman, like, you're gonna let him take me? Like, like, he's a drug addict. Like, but again, I'm a child. And I remember going from my shack in Bern into Second Avenue in Albany and being in a halfway house or wherever the fuck I was, being like,
a halfway house.
Yeah.
My God.
Like, I just remember being like, I shouldn't be, I was like maybe 9 or I'm like 8 maybe. And I was just like, I shouldn't be here. Like, this is not okay. Like, this is, I wanted to be back in the woods. I was like, bring me back to my shack. Like, so yeah, like, that, again, kids have no control, so I'm always
unhand me, you heathen. I don't know him.
It was literally one of those, like, visits, like, he needed to get to, like...
Wait, you know that meme where it's like, it's this little boy and this maybe, like, man in his 20s sitting on the porch, and they look kind of like, little boy looks a little awkward. The dude is looking away, and it's like, when it's your first time meeting your father.
That was always my face. I was always unimpressed. But anyway, but yeah, like, just saying that kids are something to be protected. And we're going to wrap it up because I want my freaking butter pretzels. I'm thirsty for them.
Oh my God. This
butter pretzels. And also shout out to one of our followers because he's holding down a pie for me. So I got it.
We always get sweets from the man.
I don't know how I haven't gotten bigger.
What are we gonna come up a nickname for him?
I know. We gotta think of something. Should we ask him? I don't know. I'm almost afraid to ask him because
we might as well, because every time we go over there, we gotta have a conversation anyway.
That's true. Watch him just say his regular name. I already know. I feel like that's gonna be what he's gonna say, and when he says that, I'm down because I'm just like, all right, whatever.
All right. Yeah, so we're going to sign off now.
Stop raping kids.
And
R. Kelly's bad.
Stop putting your kids in predicaments for fame and money and proximity.
Also, I Believe I Can Fly is a bop, and you will never stop listening to it secretly. I defy you to not listen to I Believe You Can Fly. And also, I know he's a total creep, but, like, he gives an amazing live performance of it. Not gonna lie.
I'm sick of you right now. But yeah, I'm still probably gonna get lost in nostalgia and then get confronted with the ugly truth by my brain and hit next because.
But also, none of that is gonna pay our rent. He's been a perv. Y'all knew he was a perv. You've been putting money in his pocket. So I just need y'all to make sure if you're gonna fucking go be all up in arms for him now. Thank you for him now. I need you to check some of these other dudes because he's the bottom of the totem pole. Because these white dudes, these Harvey Weinsteins who are getting away with it, because didn't nobody lock him the fuck up and he was out here raping crazy, wiretaps and all that raping, and y'all still let him walk.
It's well documented. Like, I hazard to say, I know nobody don't care about
Epstein. He ain't kill himself. I forget about your island of fucking children. Island of children. He had an island of children, and y'all ain't say shit. Flying in little kids.
I know you know don't nobody care about no little black girls, but it seemed like don't nobody care about no little white ones neither. So like, y'all have to start loving yourselves more so that you could love your children more. I think that's where it starts. Like, just like we were saying in the last episode about black women need to stop having children. Because you need to start loving yourself first. Like, you have to give yourself time to get to know yourself before you bog your life down with motherhood. And I think that's the energy that I'm trying to have for that. Not like black people should stop procreating, but really, if it's not going to be healthy, then how is it going to be good for us as a collective to keep birthing children into dysfunction and poverty, and then banking on fame and celebrity to thrust us into the atmosphere of rich lifestyle? And it's just like, it can't be so many wild extremes. It needs to be more even keeled. I think that's what more black people need to aim for, is to aim for it to be even and not to just be swinging wildly from wildly impoverished to a millionaire and then not knowing how to manage your money and stuff like that, and like banking on your child being cute enough to get checks. Like, these things are weird. It's just, and also some of your kids clearly don't want to be famous. So I think that you need to stop putting people who don't want to perform on the stage. If your kid wants to be a performer and they just a natural born performer and you recognize that, of course, nurture it carefully, research the people that you're sending your children around. But I feel like that should be something that your child comes to you with, and it shouldn't be an idea that you thrust upon your child.
And also, when we say performers, I feel like, in my mind, I'm thinking singer, actor, like, not these little kitty model
dancers,
things. Like, dancers. Like, we're talking about, you know, musicians, whatever sometimes there's prodigies. Sometimes kids are talented. Sometimes they're precocious and just have a
comedic timing. Like, some kids are just little, you know, you can see they have that little it factor, and they're just natural performers. And rule. They enjoy it. Like, they'll be ready to, like, there are some kids like that. A lot of child stars are like that, but because people are predatory everywhere, it ends up so sad. I just be feeling so sad.
We did all this. We didn't even touch on pageants, the kitty pad. Like, girl, we gotta go, because literally, we can be here all day. Y'all stay with the fucking sexualizing little fucking kids. You do it all the fucking time.
Growing them up. John Benet Ramsey, that's a person who, she's been dead since I was like 12, and still her name is something that will garner clicks. It's something that will grab people's attention. And that was like a 6-year-old that was stolen or murdered, and it was like a big mystery, but she was a pageant girl. And when you see photos of her, they never show photos, like, or it would just be like random glances of John Benet when she was just being like a regular little girl. 9 times out of 10, they would use her pageant photos, and she was a strikingly beautiful little girl with these big blue eyes and this really pale blonde hair, and they got makeup on her and stuff. And pageants are in this weird space where you obviously can tell these are children, but they also look very adult. It's just a weird vibe. Uncanny Valley type.
And then you're categorizing them and giving them little titles based on
their looks.
They're growing up in
their
society.
talents, but it's also very, very looks based. I feel like it's hard to come away from pageant life without a complex.
And there's a lot of these moms pushing their kids into being models, and it's just like,
in the modeling industry, it's gross for adults. I don't think it's any better for kids. I don't know. I just don't think that these are real aspirations. You know how I feel about it.
So I have like a strikingly beautiful daughter. Like, I would put up pictures, but she's so pretty, I don't have to validate she. She's fine, okay? She's gorgeous. Red hair, freckles, she's just stunning, right? When she was little, I took somebody else's kid, because they didn't have a car, there was like one of those, like, they come and scout you to the town things. And she was 3 years old. I was there waiting for the chick outside the little, like, hotel hall or whatever they do their, like, their calls or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the chick came out and was like, oh my gosh, like, she's gorgeous. She's a little red afro. Like, she was so cute. And it was one of the things where you pay, and I was never about that. I was like, anything where you gotta pay, I was like, scam, whatever. So she was like, oh no, she doesn't have to pay. And I was like, what, no? And they were like, she's exceptionally, like, like, we'll just have her come to the next thing and, like, to be in front of agents or whatever. And they waive the fee and they pay for the hotel. And my friend had paid like $300. Her kid didn't get nothing. And my daughter was too young because you had to be 4 and up. So they was like, none of those rules really apply when you have an exceptionally looking kid.
Have the look.
If you have, like, and I remember that because I kind of always knew, like, you get what you pay for, and, like, and that's why a lot of these things, when they're like, oh, pay me this and pay me that, I'm always like, nah, because she had an agent. But also, my daughter is shy, and it doesn't have that personality, wasn't committed to it, didn't want to do it. It was a pain. I was not a rich stay-at-home fucking mom, so was going back and forth. She had an agent. She wound up with an agent in Manhattan. But I was working at a daycare. Like, I can't make these two things work because I don't have the life to accommodate that. I realized that. Right. I wasn't about to put my family in dire situations to have my daughter be a model that she didn't even really want to be. Like, she wasn't, I was like, whatever, that was a dub. She did it, like, twice. She went on a couple auditions, and that was a dub. I always told her she wanted to get back into it, like, do whatever. She's grown now. She's a makeup artist, so she's still in the industry a little bit. But, yeah, as a parent, was like, well, I'm not thirsting to do this thing, but she's stuck out. If it's
an opportunity that someone can have, then it would be one thing if, like, she had responded and really enjoyed it.
But I wasn't leaving my 3-year-old with nobody. Wasn't nobody being alone with my 3-year-old. Like,
right, and as it should be. And because I'm not going to send my 3-year-old to go be alone with somebody, that means now it's like it's a go or it's a no-go situation, because you would have had to be like, well, I have to pivot and do this now if this is what we doing, because I have to be with her.
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna, like, throw my.
And
I was
people
already
be
struggling.
sending their kids off, and that's where we're coming back to, like, how you send your kid off to somebody. Like, I don't give a fuck of what celebrity it is. Like, you don't know this person.
No, I wasn't finna do all that, and I don't think anybody with any common sense is. So just freaking use some discernment. Damn, like,
basically some discernment and some discretion where your kids are concerned.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up because I don't know how long this is in, but I'll see my pretzels.
Yeah.
Bye. Ooh.